Hello everyone. Welcome to our training call on individual donor fundraising. My name is Hunter. I will be the moderator for this call. So we're going to have it broken down into two parts. We're going to do the presentation in the first half, and then the next half, we're going to have question and answer. You can send all your questions in the chat. You can use the raise your hand feature for Zoom. If we are going through a slow period and we're not answering any of those questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourself to ask a question. We do prefer that you keep yourself muted during the entire presentation. That would be very polite. So a brief background, we're going to be presented with the founder of CHEJ, Lois Gibbs. She came out of retirement for a little bit to do this presentation. We're really appreciative of you. So CHEJ was founded in 1981. We have three primary functions. A lot of people kind of don't really remember quite well, but we do grassroots organizing, technical and scientific assistance, and communications. So if you need help with any of those three things, please contact us. I will be putting our contact information in the chat. And if you have any more questions or want to talk to any of us personally, we can go ahead and give you our emails and you can connect with that. So without further ado, take it away, Lois.
Thank you, Hunter. So welcome, everybody. I'm very excited. For those who don't know, fundraising is one of my favorite things to do. Oh, well, Sharon's here, so Sharon can attest to that. And that's why I call it fundraising as opposed to fundraising. Take the D off the end and think about what you can do to have fun. And as we go through this slideshow, I just want you to know the slideshow will be available. It will come out in addition to the link to this Zoom meeting, so it'll come out to all of you and you'll have a chance to see it. So individual fundraising for individual donors is the most important fundraising activity you can do. Foundation grants come and go. The foundations change their priorities. They decide they're going to fund something else. And then you're left with a big hole in your budget. So you really need to think about, if you're going to spend a lot of time building something, individual donors is exactly where you want to go. It will give your organization stability. It builds ownership from the community into your organization. And it brings more people together in your community to help whatever issue you're fighting or struggling with. It is the foundation of most organizations that are around for longevity. CHEJ had a large individual, has a large, I'm retired, I don't really know, but I think they still have a large individual donor base. And so when a grantor, the foundation says, we're not going to fund you this year because we've changed our priorities, we don't have to panic, because we know fundamentally 60% of our money is coming from this donor base. And then the last thing I want to say before we talk about the tools and stuff that we need is that when foundations or corporations look at your organization and are deciding whether or not to fund you, it's not just about the paper and your budget and all that stuff. It's also about how much are you getting from individuals? How much is the community invested in your organization? And if the community is not invested in your organization in a way that's significant, that doesn't mean 60% necessarily, but a way that's significant, then why should I be investing in you? And so you really need to think about that, because it will help you raise more money from foundations. It will help you raise more money from corporations, and it will provide you a very solid base for your organization, that if something slips aside, falls out of place, that you still have the money you need to continue to move forward to do the very important work you're doing. So with that, let me get, I'm going to do a slideshow, and I'm a little out of practice, but I am going to see if I can do this from the beginning. Do it, and yeah. Okay, cool. Look at that. Not so bad. Okay, so raising money for your work from individuals. And again, it is the most important way to raise money, and it's the most stable income for your community group. So let's talk about that in a little bit. Unrestricted funds. So when you're getting money from individuals, it's unrestricted. A foundation, a corporation, they say they're only going to fund X or Y. money from individuals, you can spend it on salaries, you can spend it on rent, you can spend it on yard signs, you can spend it on anything you want to spend it on. It's unrestricted. It's the best money that's out there. Because if an emergency arises and you have to do something, you don't have time to go and find a foundation or a corporation who will necessarily fund you, because then the opportunity has passed to react to that. It builds people out power. You expand your volunteer base. You spread the word. It's like evangelism, right? So everybody who donates to your organization is bought into your organization, and that's people power. And corporations and elected officials look at an organization and say, how many members do they have? How many people are invested in this? How many people are giving a contribution? It doesn't matter whether the contribution is $1 or $1,000. How many are contributing to this and buying into this organization? And the more you have, the more powerful you are in their eyes. And so that's really important, especially if you're going to do some policy or legislation or something like that in the local government, state government, or even to a certain extent the federal government. So it is really the best way to raise money. So most people say, well, we come from a poor community, so we really can't do that. So I wanted to show you what the sources of giving are in this country. This is the United States. Individuals on an annual basis gives 68% of the total giving in America. 68% come from individuals, not from corporations, not from foundations. They come from individuals. Foundations provide 18%. And then it's always very narrow. It's not environment or environmental justice. It's environmental justice in the Midwest, in this county, with these three things you have to jump through. Bequests, which are people who leave money in their wills, are 9%, and corporations are 5%. So when we're talking about how do you raise money for stability for your organization, you really need to understand that the most money in this country come from individuals. They are an abundance, not a scarcity. And they show community ownership, that this organization matters. So it's really, really important. It's an important number. So if you were to look at your budget for your organization, what is the percentage of donors you have? Just looking at the numbers, income, or however you do it. How much of the money comes from foundations, and how much money comes from your household budgets, which is really, for the small kitchen table groups, are really a problem, because our household budget should not be used for the organization. So really look at what you're doing and really examine that, so that you can come up with a way to really support your organization in long-term ways that is really solid, and it's going to stay there, and it's going to accomplish its goals. So now we talk about poor communities. Well, we are in a poor community. They don't give any money. Well, that's not true. For individuals who make $25,000 or less, these are statistics you can look up online. $25,000 or less a year gives 16.6% of the overall money raised by charities. Think of that. People who are less than $25,000 give that much money. Why? There's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is because they know what that money means. They really know what that money means. And for you not to ask somebody for a contribution because they make $25,000 or less, or they're too poor, or they can't afford it, and you to make that decision on their behalf, you have no right to make that decision on their behalf. You are taking away from them what they want to do. And so I think a lot, and I hear this all the time in the field. Well, we're from a poor community, they can't give. Yes, they can, and they want to. They want to. So then if you look at the next sort of grouping, the $25,000 to $50,000 income households, and the $50,000 to $75,000 income households, almost 30% of those donations come from people who make $75,000 or less a year, right? It's huge. And then when you go up the scale and you look at 75 to 100, it's 3.6%. You're looking at oh, sorry, that line was supposed to go down one more, sorry. 100 to 200,000 it's minus 3.3%. 200,000 more. The more people make, the more money they make, the less they give. This is the bottom line. In America, the ones who make the most money are the ones who give the least amount. So talking to your neighbors next door and in your community is going to reap you a whole lot more contributions and buy-in and volunteers than anything else that you do. The problem with this is that lots of people have problems asking for money, and I don't know how many people in this group do, but if you look at this chart and think about which one represents you. I am a donor. I support the people and causes I care about by giving. I am a fundraiser. I support the people and causes I believe about by asking others to contribute. I am a donor and a fundraiser, and I am not a donor or a fundraiser. So we were talking before we got in, and one of my very best friends and colleagues is that woman up there in the left-hand corner with her hands up like this. I'm not a fundraiser. I do donate, but I'm not a fundraiser. I don't give. I don't want anything to do with that. And that's a problem, is that people really get stuck on thinking about not wanting to be a fundraiser, not wanting to ask. For me, I am number 3. I'm a donor and a fundraiser. I give money and I raise money for other groups and other things I care about. And I'm quite proud of that. But where are you on this chart? And then think about it. Where did you develop your relationship with money? So many grassroots people have a really bad relationship with money. So let's unpack that relationship. So reflect on the following questions. What and from whom did I learn about money? So maybe when you were a child driving down the street with your parents or an adult, and they said, look at that man begging for money on the corner. Why doesn't he just get a job? And as a child, somehow that sunk into your head. So now you think when you ask for money, you are a negative beggar of money who isn't working and isn't worthy of it. Where did you develop that relationship? For those who are nervous or uncomfortable asking for money, where did that come from? Did it come from your parents? Did it come from the siblings? Did it come from colleagues and friends, whatever? How did you develop that relationship? And how real is it? And then think about how you feel when you ask for money. When you ask for money, do you feel okay? Are you a little nervous? Are you just like the woman like this? Could you please give me some money? And hold your breath until they answer. How do you feel when you give money away? I know I feel really good when I give money away. One of my pet projects is feeding children. Like, I give money all away all the time to feed children in America. I think in the richest country of the world, we should not have any children who go to bed hungry at night. And so I feel good about that. I really do. And so if I feel good about that, then others are going to feel good giving away money for the cause they care about. And so if you think about this, how do you feel when you give away money? If you feel good, then you're giving somebody else an opportunity to feel good like you do and like I do for feeding small children across America. But think about these questions and really explore it. These are individual questions. These are not group questions. And it might help you to get over your resistance, if you have resistance to asking for money. Individuals have to be asked, so you have to get over this in order to ask. And you also need to have a plan. So creating your individual donor fundraising plan. So I just want to go through a couple things here. This session usually is like 3 or 4 hours, so I'm trying to consolidate. And if you get stuck somewhere, we can't get to it today, let me know, and I'd be happy to answer your questions or help you out. So here, what is your fundraising goal? I put the thermometer there because it used to be United Way, and then people would give money and the thermometer would go up, and it was always around the holiday season. So what is your fundraising goal? So what do you want to raise? What do you want to raise the first quarter of the year? What do you want to raise the second quarter? What do you want to raise on an annual basis? What is your goal? And then how does that goal relate to your budget? So I'm not talking about getting in the weeds here. If someone says, if you ask someone for $50, they're like, well, okay, what are you going to spend it on? You need to be able to respond. So in a broad way or a narrow way, you need to be able to respond when you're asking for individual donations. So we need the money for yard signs. Maybe it's a smaller campaign. We're going to get X amount of yard signs, and they cost Y amount of money, and we want to launch a campaign with our yard signs. So that's what we're raising money for. Or we're trying to raise our annual budget because we need to keep the lights on. We need the phones still working. We need to be able to travel to these meetings. We need to hold our own meetings to talk to people. We need to do flyers, whatever it is, but broad strokes like that, as opposed to the details of your various sort of budget stuff. Who are your audience? You know, people always say, oh, everybody's my audience. Well, no, everybody's not your audience. For example, the people who come knocking on my door and want money for the PTA or PTO, I don't have any children in school. I'm not your audience. I don't want to give the PTA, PTO. I'm going to use my money to feed the children over there. Because that's what I care about. And I have children and grandchildren. So who is your audience? Maybe it's your community, maybe it's some of the local Kiwanis Club or community things like that. But think about that and list those audiences. Who are they? Who are likely to support your cause and your issue? What strategies are most relevant? So what are the best strategies to attract that audience? And how do you go about that? So if you're asking the local faith organization to give you money, you're probably not going to suggest they give you money for yard signs. It just seems like they're usually much more conservative. So you're probably going to ask them to give you money for something else, maybe flyers to inform the group. So think about the strategy, who you're asking and what you're asking them for, or which parts of your budget you're trying to describe to them that's more likely to fit them, as opposed to the overall insensitive, here's a list of things we want to do. Think about how many donors and donations you need. So if you're going to put together a plan, you need to know how many donors and how many donations to reach this dollar amount, which we'll get to in the next slide. And then what is our timeline? So is this a quarterly fundraising plan? Is this a yearly fundraising plan? What is your timeline to raise this money? If it's for yard signs that you want to put up in November, then you have a 30-day timeline to raise that money. If it's to support your overall budget, then we need to raise this much in the first quarter, because this is what it costs for us to run the organization for a quarter, for 3 months, 4 months, whatever. And if you don't have a plan with a timeline, you're not likely to succeed. You can't just say, here's a list, these are people we're going to approach, and we're going to get around to it, because then it never happens. You need to really be very, very concrete and specific about what you're doing, who you're doing it with, how you're doing it, and whether you're succeeding and failing, because that way you can reflect back and say, why didn't we make this? Why did we fail? Why did we succeed so much more than we thought we were going to? And so those things are really important to know, so you can actually make decisions as you move forward that will help you. So this is sort of my fun thing, is I tell everybody to make a pyramid, because this is how you actually put together a plan. And you can put any number you want in the pyramid. You can put 1,000 up the top, you can put 5,000 up the top, you can put 25,000 up the top. But this helps you to figure out how many donors or donations you need to reach your fundraising goal. Given that you know about your organization, the people you're going to ask for money and support, how would you fill in this chart? So, for example, if you look in the middle of the slide, to get to 2,000, this would be for like a kitchen table group. To get to $2,000, you could have 3 donors at $200, 4 donors at $100, 6 donors at $50, and so forth and so on. You end up in the end having 68 donors giving $2,000. You've raised your $2,000, which is really very cool. But equally important is you now have 68 people who are part of your organization, who believe in you, who's contributed to you, who is part of the group. And so that's just huge, right? And it shows both foundations, corporations, and politicians that people in the community care about you and care about the organization. There are other ways you could do it. So to the right of that, you see $50. You could get $40, $50 donations to get $2,000. You could get $80, $25 donation, $100 $20 donations. You could do this chart however you want. There's no rhymes or reasons. It's what's real and what's likely to happen in your community, given what you know about your community. So pyramids are a great place to start, or you could do it this way as well. And so your best prospects for that pyramid, for that thing, is you really, this sort of the ABCs. They have to have the ability to give. And like I said at the beginning, everybody has the ability to give, and the poorer they are, the more likely they are to give. They're not going to give $100, but they're more likely to give. So do they have the ability to give and demonstrate, being one of the 7 out of 10 adults in the US who gives away money? People do it every single day. They do it for politicians, they do it for schools, they do it for everything. That they believe in your cause. So you're going to have to make the case that this cause is worthy and they believe in it and how they're connected to it. They're interested in your organization. Maybe they came to a meeting, maybe they signed up to be a volunteer, maybe they did something like that, and that you know them in some fashion. I can't tell you how many people I've met who said, oh yeah, people come to our meeting all the time. We get them to sign in. We get their phone number and their email in case we want to volunteer. And they never touch that list. Never touch that list. What are you doing? Why did you make the list in the first place? Why are you telling these people, and they come back to the next meeting and you make them sign in again and you make them add all that stuff? Really? Why did you do that? That list is the most valuable asset you have. Everybody on that list can give $10 or more, depending on what kind of community you're from. It's the most important contact you have for raising money, individual monies. So here's how you put it all together. After you make your pyramid, right? Then you figure out who and what. So here's your plan. So you have the pyramid thing on the last page, right? So how are you going to do it? Donation, person, organization, whatever. Contact information, who will contact this person, and notes. So a group of you could sit together and say, I know Giant Foods. Giant Foods is the grocery store locally. I know Giant Foods will give us $1,000. And the manager of Giant Foods is Mr. Frank. And Susan B knows Mr. Frank. Actually, their kids go to soccer together. And so Susan agrees to volunteer to ask Mr. Frank. And maybe she's asked somebody else to come with her while she does that. And the pitch for that Giant Food, Mr. Frank, is pitches advertising. We're going to put your name on our flyer. Everybody's going to know that you care about this community just like everybody else. And so that's how you put it together, so you actually have a plan. Walgreens, our local drugstore, the manager is so-and-so, John N., is going to go and approach them, and the pitch is advertising. $1,000. Mr. and Mrs. Kahn gave us $1,000 from their family, and we need to reapproach them. Doug W. knows Mr. and Mrs. Kahn and the family, and so he's agreed to go and talk to them and try to get another $1,000 for t-shirts or whatever. And then lastly, but equally important, is that Allen Avenue is a street in our community. It's a street right next to me, by the way. And so we have 200 people on Allen Avenue. I'm in an urban area. And so we want to raise $100 from Allen Avenue. Susan B. lives on Allen Avenue. So she's volunteered to go door to door and ask people who live on that street to contribute. So this is a way you take that pyramid of how many people you need and how many donations, and you put it into practical and you associate names with it. So if Susan B. didn't get to Allen Avenue, maybe we had to find somebody else because her mom got sick or something, whatever it might be. So it's a way to also hold people accountable and know where you're going and know where you are. And so this one just shows what happens. So personal face-to-face asking. One out of every 4 times you ask, you will get the money. 1 out of every 4. The other 3 is not a rejection of you. It's because people don't have the money because they just send it over to the Middle East because it's a dire needs down there, and that's what they're doing, and they'll come back and give you money maybe later. But personal asking, 4 to 1. Every 4 people you ask, you will get 1 donation. A personal letter, which is, Dear Teresa, I really want you to do this, Teresa and I are friends. is 10 to 1. So you have to write 10 personal letters to get 1 donation. Phonathon is 20 to 1, although I don't think that number is correct anymore because now we all have these smartphones and they tell you the number and you don't recognize it, so you're not going to pick it up. But it used to be 20 to 1. Direct mail is 100 to 1. So when you're sending out a direct mail piece to communities across the country, to contacts, for every 100 letters you send, you'll get 1 donation. It's just ridiculous. And then special events vary 3 to 1. So if you're doing spaghetti dinner or something like that, it really depends on what the costs are up front and you know what the kind of event is. So that one varies. So the one that was most profitable is face to face. You ask 4 times, you'll get 1 donation. That is huge. So do a little attitudes kind of changes things. So here's some ideas. Ask people who are closest to you, not far away. Asking a stranger is actually harder than it is to ask people next door. If you went next door and said, look, we're trying to protect our property values here, and if we don't fix this, our property values goes down. You have property here, you care about this. Could you support our cause? And we're looking for X. Remember, the most money is available from individuals. Stories are the most important, and you must be a donor yourself. So if you're not giving to your organization in dollars, even if it's $1, everybody has to give at least $1 to the organization in order to be really honest and asking somebody else to give, right? And the attitude adjustment, money has no value. It's what we do with it that matters. We give it value. The love of money is the root of all evil, we always hear. Money is actually a tool, nothing else. You don't have to love it, but don't be afraid of it. Raising money is powerful. Money gives us power. It gives us the ability to do things, to go to meetings, to do yard signs, to hold meetings, to do lots of different things in our organizations. Money doesn't fall from the sky. It's an action thing. You have to go out and ask for it. If you don't ask for it, you're never going to get it. You're never going to get it. People don't generally just throw money at an organization because it exists. Learn to like fundraising. If you don't, then, you know, fake it till you make it, because you have to think about what you're doing and what inspires you, and that will help you get over that anxiety. It's not about you. It's so not about you. It's about your organization. And when they say no, it's not a personal thing. It's not that they're rejecting you at all. It's actually that they just can't do it at that time, or they're just not there yet. But you can always go back. Deep listening is really important with donors, especially on one-on-one communities. You have to listen to what they're saying and what they care about, as much as you pitching your story and what you care about. And then the 4 most effective words in building powerful movements, as we all know, is thank you and join me, right? So in summary, you really need to start to unpack the fears that come along with fundraising. You need to make space for people to take control and support their own liberations from toxics or health. Let them give you money. Ask them for money and let them give it to you. And don't assume people don't have money. Remember my charts at the beginning. And practice being mindful, intuitive with people you come into contact with. That, you know, when they talk, then you can move that around to something that fits your ask and your request in your organization. So the key is to ask one-on-one, and the key is to do that through a donor visit of some sort. It might be knocking on the door. It might be sitting down at their table. But those donor visits are really key. And so here are sort of the short rules. We usually play role plays and stuff like that, but we don't really have the time on a 1-hour thing. But here's the rules for donor visit, or outline. And so when you call up and you make an appointment to talk to Lois, and you're coming over to my house to speak to me about giving money, or you're knocking on the door and the dog is barking, like mine is being very well behaved for for change. A dog is barking. These are sort of things that you need to move through. So first, a greeting with small talk, kids, dogs, neighborhood. So, oh, you got the cutest little dog there. It's like da-da-da. Or I see your kids are playing outside. I used to play hopscotch when I was a young kid. Small talk. We're making friends. And then you say, let's, she invites you, he or she invites you in. And then you say, well, thanks. I know you're busy. Acknowledge people are busy, because this is a world in which we all are always busy. And that this is what we want to talk about. And I know you have to be out of here by 2, or I know you have to move on to cook supper, or whatever it might be. So when you're talking to them, the first thing you do is your personal story. How did you get involved? You don't have to be a survivor or a victim of a problem, but how did you get involved? Stories matter to people, and stories that are emotional, not facts and figures. So I got involved because my kids were sick, or I got involved because I was really worried about house values, and I want to leave my house. I'm old. I want to leave my house to my children, and I want it to have more value than when I bought it. And tell it, why did you get involved? Why does it matter? I have 3 grandchildren, and my grandchildren, I want to give them some money for their college, and my house is a way to do that. Or my children are sick, or whatever. Just tell them your personal story. Why are you there? Why are you standing on their doorstep or sitting on their sofa? And then get to know the donor. So don't just keep talking, just like, this is my story, this is how I got involved, and I really care about this issue. And then you ask the donor, tell me a little bit about yourself. You have 2 children. How old are they? Are they healthy? And then the donor will talk a little bit. So now you're having a conversation. It's not an ask. It's not knocking on the door and asking, like you see a lot of sort of solicitation happening. This is a one-on-one meeting. You'll get much more money by doing that. So then talk about your organization. What did you do? What is a victory? What's a victory story? And victories are not like we won the thing. It's the victories. We finally got EPA to do something. We finally got the mayor to meet with our people. We finally got, something, whatever. It's a step towards the end victory goal. And then another campaign story, chemical or whatever. And then ask the question, do you have any questions? This is what we're doing. Do you have any questions? And then they will or they won't. And you respond to those questions if they do. And then ask for money. You just ask for money. Would you be willing to give us a donation? And have an amount already in your head before you walk through the door of X amount of dollars. And then you have the following steps. What you always have to do is, if they say yes or no, but paperwork, options to give, confirmations, next steps, so forth. So that's sort of how you do it. And at the end of this slideshow is a script you could use to call them, to set up the appointment, to talk through what you would do in more detail at the actual donor meeting. But, as you can see, the organization works on critical issues. We have talented staff. Our board gets real results. To support this more work, I'm really asking you for $100 this month. Or I'm working to raise enough money for 1,000 lawn signs. And it's, da-da-da-da. So then you ask them actually for the dollars. And if they say no, it's not about you. It's about they don't have the money right now. But if they say yes, or if they say, I can't give you $100, and say, well, I get that. What can you give us? What is doable for you at this point? And shut up. Just shut your mouth. People get nervous and then they start talking. It's like, because we really did. No, shut up. Say, what do you think would be something you could contribute to this? Because it's really important. Just close your mouth, listen. If they hem-haw around, ask open-ended questions. Well, you care about house values, don't you? You care about the health of the kids, right? Open-ended questions. Speak from the heart, and then you're going to get the right amount. They'll give it to you 9 out of 10 times. But shut up. I can't tell you how many times I was in a fundraising event and somebody pulled out their checkbook, was about to write a check, and somebody said, well, we're going to ask other people for this. So as a result, you get like, oh, well, then you don't need 5,000 from me, right? You really only need maybe 1,000, right? No. We need shut up. So to ask and be quiet. Success is asking, set a goal, invite many people to give. It's a numbers game. Remember, 4-to-1. The more you ask, the more yeses you'll get. Believe in your cause. Your belief must be stronger than your fear. And be sure to thank everyone who gives. That's really basically put together a plan and just go out and ask. And I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, I'm so glad you asked, that you came to my door and you asked, because I was trying to figure out how to do it. And I kept meaning to do it, but I never got around to doing it. So these are really key things. So below is a model for calling, it's a script for calling donors to ask to schedule a meeting, and then the script for the meeting itself that you can tailor to your own organization, to your own stuff. I'm not going to go through that. I thought at this point we could just, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about what I presented. So yeah, I think did I stop sharing, Hunter?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So I open the floor for questions, and I do have to say, I love fundraising. I love, you go to a person and what you're saying is, we rock, we're changing our world, whether it's a community or a state. We're part of change, and I'm really proud of that. You never talk about the negativity. You only talk about your goals and the positive things that are happening. You can't have a better conversation. You're not going to talk about John who struck who, and whatever craziness is going on, and you're talking about positive stuff. And so I walk out of these meetings feeling incredibly inspired about my own stories, and it's just kind of silly, but yeah. Okay, so how are we doing this, Hunter? Are we going to take them out of the?
I was gonna do the chat first. One
Okay.
chat was, what's from Paula, what's the rate of return for email solicitation if they're personalized by name?
I don't know. I didn't look that one up, but I'm sure you can find that. I think email, it's sort of like direct mail. It's a reminder. If they're already on your list and already giving, they're probably going to give again. If they're new to your list, then they're probably not quite bought in. So I think that's.
There's Cindy asked a question about any suggestions for like software that we could be used for members and give on behalf of organizations pledging talents. I don't know because she's using SurveyMonkey and Google Sheets. Do you know any software that could be used to track fundraising?
Sorry, I don't necessarily mean software. I mean a link of any kind, internet based. Lois knows about our Singer Pledge page because we're working to raise money for our course here in Austin. And so we did a Singer's Pledge page. We used a SurveyMonkey and found out it was extremely expensive to collect all the information. We used Google Sheets, and now I'm looking at the results of it and the way they come out. There's no way to build a spreadsheet or anything based on them. So if anybody has any suggestions, not that we're going to have our singers go back and do these again, since some of them have done them twice.
Right.
But anyway, in the future, if anybody has any suggestions for that, it'd be super.
Well, we pretty much use Action Network for our solicitation, and we set it up off our website. And that seems to work really well. We just send people to our website to contribute. And then from there, we're able to collect the data in some fashion, which I don't know because I'm not a data person, but we do it all through our website, and it seems to work really well.
Well, collecting money is one thing. However, collecting ideas of fundraising activities as well as talents, what our members can do besides donating money, whether it's sponsoring a run, as I know you suggested in the past, things like that. Just gathering that information in one single place easily. That's what I don't know.
Well, it's kind of the same thing though. If you have a place on your website where people could type in. So instead of pushing a button that says $25 and then filling in the stuff, that there is an opportunity, and this is not that difficult to do, an opportunity for them to, it's almost like a comment page. So if you were to do a survey and say, if you have something, connect to this link to our website, and it will say, I'm really good. I've been doing runs for a long time. I can help you do a 5K or a 3K, and we can, raise money and awareness at the same time. So if you use your website, you just need to find a webmaster who understands this stuff. It's not expensive. Once it's set up, it's set up. It's there forever. You can change the questions, you can change the categories, you can change it all as you move forward. And yeah. And I think when you're thinking about doing events, we didn't talk much about events, but when you do events like, a spaghetti dinner or, a cocktail party or a 5K, those are all potential candidates for individual donations. And, that list is really, really valuable. The vast majority of people I have found, if they go to a party, then they'll come to another party, but they wouldn't necessarily give you a donation straight out unless you went to their house, right? If they've done a 5K run, they'll come to another run, but they won't necessarily give you the percentage there of who will give you money just by you going and asking them is less. So if the donor is coming from a contact of an activity or an event, it's a different kind of relationship. And if you can get your individual donors to give you monthly instead of a one-time donation, it is fabulous. Because what happens is when people give monthly, they usually give more. And when people give monthly, they give for 3 to 5 years generally. Part of it is most people want to even stop doing it, but they keep forgetting to do it until it comes to pay their bill, right? And they look at their credit cards like, oh shoot, I meant to cancel that. I'm done funding CHEJ. I want to move over to somebody else, right? But they never do it. They just keep forgetting, and we can't do it. Only they can do it. And so, monthly giving is really the best. Even if you went to your door to door and your individual meetings and you got people to do monthly, that would really benefit your organization the most. Other questions?
That's it with the chat. Would anyone else like to ask a question, raise a hand?
Yes, I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
So when you were talking about the different types of people, we found that the majority of the ones we are working with do not want to actually go out and ask for money. So that leaves you very few people more comfortable doing that. How do you encourage people to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to those first slides. That was like, why are you uncomfortable? Helping them explore that. So here's a way you could do it: is you could have an event of people who you would like to change their position of being anti-fundraising. So have a workshop or something at somebody's living room, sort of like what we used to do is we used to do this little cocktail thing, like wine and cheese and beer for the boys. And we'd all come together and we would have this conversation about fundraising and what you want to do. So we didn't do it in a way that says we're going to teach you how to fundraise. We're saying we want to explore individual donors and fundraising, and we'd love you to come and have some input. We'll have some wine and cheese. And then what you do is have like a little workshop, but it's not a formal workshop, and in which you start asking these questions. So Lois, tell me about what was it that gives you this feeling that this is not uncomfortable for you? Like, why do you feel that it's uncomfortable? And you have these conversations, and when you're having it in somebody's living room, which is casual and safe, people are more likely to open up, because what you really have to do is show them that they're wrong about what they're doing. And if you can, rejecting it, and if you can convince them to role play with you in the room, they'll get much more comfortable. So if you find 1 or 2 people who are very comfortable with asking for money, and you get 2 or 3 people who are not as comfortable, and put them all in the room together and role play this, it sometimes helps a lot. I remember a meeting I did with Brettel, the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League in North Carolina, and one of the women standing up and like, I don't know why I have this attitude. It bothers me. And I'm like, well, let's explore it. She's like, I can't even explore it. I get so crazy when it comes to this. Like, well, and by the end of the meeting, she was like, I think I can ask a couple people. The idea that she even moved to, I can ask a couple people, was really huge. And that had a lot to do with other people around the table saying, I'm uncomfortable because I always feel like I'm begging. And I don't want to be a beggar. I don't want to be one of them. And so that conversation in a safe environment, with coffee or tea or wine or beer, whatever, really, I think really can shift people, but it's really shifting 3 to 5 people at a time. It's not a mass, but 3 to 5 is a lot, right?
Yes,
It's more than you got now, huh?
exactly. And that's part of the problem. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
We are also fighting a large company and the Ohio EPA. So our adversaries are quite daunting to people. There's a sense of we hear the message, you can't do anything because they have all the money and the power. So getting people even to move to action is difficult. So moving past that towards money seems to be an even bigger hurdle.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. And I actually think, and maybe some of the young folks on the call can respond to this, but I really think the younger generation has less problems asking for money than the older generation. And I don't exactly know why that is. Hunter, you're a younger generation. Why is that? Do you have any idea?
I think we're just kind of I think we're kind of like our planet is dying anyway. What's the point in being scared of asking for money?
That's
It's
good.
probably a dark answer, but I kind of think it's the more blunt answer.
Yeah.
Jim, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I had a question. Our group, I was sort of happy to hear another group fighting in a local DEP, the Ohio DEP. We're fighting the Pennsylvania DEP. We're taking them to court, so that means our lawyers getting a lot of money, and so fundraising is a big thing we're trying to do. But right now we don't have a way to take credit cards, and I'm wondering, I don't know what is involved in that, but is it worth it to somehow be able to take credit cards? Because you were talking about getting donations on people's credit cards and stuff like that. And our group's leery of getting caught up in things that cost money, but maybe it would be worth it in the long run. I don't know.
Yeah. It takes money to raise money, but it doesn't take a lot of money to raise a lot of money. It takes a little money to raise a lot of money. And Sharon could probably answer this question better than me, but we've done a number of events and we do credit cards, and you just get this little square. Sharon, what is it? Can you answer it?
Yeah. There is a commission that goes with credit cards that you have to worry about.
Okay.
The Smart Square, that's what you're talking
Yes,
about.
thank you.
It's the Smart Square.
Yeah.
But there is when you set it up, it's about $200 to actually set up. And but there is a commission depending on what they give.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is that. And American Express charges more than Visa and Discover and stuff like that. But if you invest the $200 in the front end, which I know is a chunk of change, but if you invest it in the front end, you will get it in the donations, because people really would much rather do credit cards. Nobody has cash anymore. Very few people carry checkbooks around with them. So you have to bite the bullet and do it. And you might even check with your law firm. They may already have an account. that they could lend to you under, you can split your accounts in different ways, give it to have 2 accounts or whatever, because really the initial fee that you had to pay is the $200. But to do it with, if you don't do credit cards, you're going to have a really hard time raising those monies. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for all this.
And you need a credit card for those monthly donations, and those are the ones that are going to last the longest and give you the most and the ultimate, as opposed to a check or $20 bill or $100 bill.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, we have time for one more, and I saw Ranjana, you put your comment in before Darlene raised her hand, so I'm going to have to give it to you, Ranjana. You'll be our last one.
Okay, thank you. What I wanted to ask was, is there a preferred way to raise money for a lawsuit? Because they are so expensive, and we find ourselves in the middle of a very expensive lawsuit now.
I think that the best way to do that is through events. People who give donations want to support the cause, not necessarily a lawsuit. Some people are really anti-lawyers. Some people are really embracing lawyers. That's the only answer. We don't have any other choice. There's really two ways of looking at it. But if you did things like walk of concerns, if you did spaghetti dinners, things that were really low cost, it does 2 things. And if you invite the lawyers there who can, or maybe their assistants, right? Because they're $200 an hour, cha-ching, cha-ching, but maybe their assistants who can come out and then update people on where the legal fight is, especially if it's a fight in the public arena, meaning EPA or the Department of Environment or whatever. I think that's the best way to do it, and really make the pitch that we have to keep going forward, and this is the best way to do it, and please give what you can. But I think it's easier to do it for lawyers that way than it is through general giving, because there's just too much concern on either side about where the money's going to go. And that was also the reason I said at the beginning, when you're asking somebody for a contribution, and they say, what's the money going to pay for? You had to really be clear about that. And sometimes when you say lawsuits, they're like, yeah, no, lawyers just make their money and then go away and they never win anything. So yeah. Events are so much fun too. And every month you have something. You could have the Halloween dance. You could have the Thanksgiving gathering. You could have, obviously, New Year's ball. You could have Valentine's Day dance in February. I mean, you just march into spring. There's just different things you can do that could raise some significant dollars.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank everybody. I thank you all for attending this training call. We're going to have to end it for today. Wrapping up, everyone will receive a link to the recording. They'll receive the slides. And Sharon, would you be the one considered in charge of fundraising since Lois is retired?
She can get it and we can work together.
Yeah, Lois and I usually work together on this, even though I try to coach her out of retirement.
So would you like me to provide your email in the follow-up if anyone has any fundraising questions?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So then everyone will receive Sharon's email if they have any fundraising questions. Thank you again for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Good luck. Raise those dollars.